You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
Oh yes, my friends, a stretch drive to the Stanley Cup playoffs is here. Presented by Betano, it's Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill, the Monday edition of Leafs Morning Take. What's going on, Rosie?
Oh, just hanging around.
Rough weekend or what?
Yeah, I found this in my basement. Someone made it when I took a clapper in the face. Just looked like an absolute mutant. But look at me now.
Wow, that's quite the surgery. What's going on? How you feeling?
It's still happening. It's all right, man. Monday morning, had a Habs win. We're doing all right. You know, kind of the dog days right now.
Oh man, like we were talking about this before we came on air for the show today. The next 6 weeks, it's just like a grind to get to the playoffs at this point.
Yeah, kind of. It's like it's just jockeying for position kind of thing. Trying to finish strong, trying to get everyone on the same page for the last, what's left, 17, 18 games, something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, kind of dog days for us, dog days for the team, but I think they're more excited getting it all dialed in for the playoffs. But for us, it's kind of like, oh, that big build up for the trade deadline, and now it's just like, I don't know. I'm kind of excited for the playoffs, man. Let's get this thing going.
Yeah, it's a bit of a downer for me as somebody who loves trades now. There's not going to be any trades, and like the next 6 weeks are just going to be waiting for the postseason, waiting to have those conversations, waiting for everything to be under a microscope for this Maple Leafs team. By the way, just before we came on air, Nick Robertson was recalled from the American Hockey League. So I guess he's back in the mix. If there's one stunner from deadline week, deadline day, it's that Nick Robertson remained a Leaf past the deadline, eh?
Yeah, he seemed like he'd be a good piece to to get a deal over the top type of thing to make something happen. But obviously Tree didn't see anything that was appealing enough to get him packaged up into a deal. But yeah, he's kind of the guy we've been talking about for a while, like a prospect who hasn't quite, like we were talking at the beginning of the year, like what is his value right now? Would anybody, does he have a high price? Is he sought after by anyone? But as the season's gone on, I think he shows he can play, and obviously put in the right situation, he can produce, and there's still a lot of potential there. But for him being our probably biggest, playable at the moment trade piece, just didn't have anything that wanted to get packaged up together that made sense to Tree, and everyone's kind of, the guys that are not happy with the trade deadline and didn't think they did enough to make our team, like they shrug their shoulders as well. I guess we're not going for it. It's like, well, there's not a lot out there to pick from. There wasn't anything that made sense, obviously, nothing that could fit in with the regulations and cap compliances that you got to fit it under. So at the end of the day, I've been saying exactly what Tree did say is it's going to come from that locker room, man. Look at all the talent and everything in there. Like when they sign these guys, it's like, oh, wow, they're going, okay, well, this is why. This is the time. It's in that locker room. There's no savior coming from the outside to win the Stanley Cup this year. This is our team. Like, I don't know why people didn't really get that.
Yeah, that's the messaging post-deadline, and we're going to get into that in about 20, 25 minutes from now. We're going to talk about this week's schedule. Again, finally some time for the Leafs to lick some wounds. It seemed like they were playing every day for 2 months. Remember the slate early on in the season? The last 2 months, they've just been playing every day. So they're off till Thursday. They'll face off against Philadelphia. What'd you make of Torts getting ejected and then suspended and fined over the weekend? Man, that was nuts.
Yeah, he early on in the game too to be that heated, and I don't know what he said necessarily. I'd like to have a hot mic, but when you bark at a ref, it's just like anything else. You catch him on an off day, or he just decided he's not going to take that, or you're rubbing him the wrong way, or the words you chose, or the tone you decided to say it in. I guess they could toss him, but Torts didn't even want to leave the bench. He's like, I'm not leaving. I think just kind of that little power struggle with the refs that you're supposed to have ultimate respect for is enough for the league to clamp down on him. So I don't know. Torts is fiery, man. I like Torts these days. I had him for a lot of different camps and Black Aces and that kind of thing. And he was kind of a intimidating dude, but he seems to have softened a little bit in his old age. He's still got the fire, obviously, but he's kind of that charming oldish man now with, I like him in the game. I think he's pretty honest and he's got to the point where he doesn't really give a shit, obviously, and he says what he thinks and still got the fire in his belly, obviously, to get punted from a game early on in the first period there.
And the best part about that whole thing was that they were commemorating the 2004 Stanley Cup winning team in Tampa. It was in Tampa. They got punted 7-0, and his entire team was there. And he was wearing a cast on his hand. Like, it was just so John Tortorella. But he won't be there on Thursday when the Maple Leafs visit the Philadelphia Flyers, a crucial game in the standings, more so for the Flyers because the Leafs have caught fire over the last month or so. Roll Up the Rim is back for Tim's 60th anniversary. I should mention is Roll Up to Win is back, not Roll Up the Rim. It's Roll Up to Win is back for Tim's 60th anniversary. And to celebrate their big year, you can win some big prizes like an electric Volkswagen ID4, a sun-soaked Hilton getaway, and cash with a daily jackpot of $10,000. Play today on the Tim's app. You see this over the weekend from the American Hockey League. Kyle Clifford just pummeling, Joseph Duzak of Springfield.
I did see it, and I don't even need to know much about it to see that this guy is an absolute rat bastard that nobody likes. But he was on the team last year, man, and then just the big F you to the whole bench, staring every guy down with the big over-the-top celly. Nobody likes that. And then Clifford goes right for him. Like, this was his teammate last year, man. So a little backstory. This Duzak was on the Marlies last year. He quit on the team, didn't even show up, didn't even play the last game, just quit. They had to play shorthanded, like not shorthanded, but less bodies. They needed him, wanted him. He was supposed to play. He just said, I'm not doing it. And just left the building, and all the team events, just packed his shit and left. Just quit on the team. The ultimate FU to a whole bunch of guys who are in the same boat, whether you're happy with your contract or your agent or your GM or the coach. You know, all those guys in the room that are in the same boat as you, there's always that mutual respect. And he obviously just threw up both middle fingers, said, see you guys later, and quit on him. And then goes and acts like a complete asshole towards them, disrespecting them. So Clifford just doesn't put up with that stuff. I like Kyle Clifford, man. Old school as they come. I fought him when he was with the LA Kings, which seems like a million years ago. He's still out there grinding and giving her. I wish they could find some kind of a spot for him to be effective on the Leafs, but obviously goes that people are just like, oh yeah, another Leafs get their feelings hurt, so they go and choose violence. It's like, you're just showing how little you understand about the game and the team dynamics of professional hockey, and yeah, the culture of respecting each other and being, accountable for your actions. And the guy just goes down, like, turtling as hard as you can, like, not even trying to hide the fact he's turtling. He's curled up in a fetal position, protecting every inch of him. Like, it's just, some guys have that in them, man, to be that rat. We talk about it on Department of Discipline, our other show under hockeyfights.com. We talk about the rats all the time, how effective they are and who's willing to do it. It takes a certain kind of guy to be able to, taunt a whole bench, then completely cower when someone comes after it. It's an interesting story. And then when I got the backstory on this Duzak kid, I'm like, man, this guy does probably not have a ton of friends around the league.
No, there's no way. Like, that's the ultimate bitch move. I hate it. I think it's a microcosm for this society, this era we live in, not only in sports, but in general, where you can pull a stunt like that and there's no repercussions. The guy turtled like a fucking bitch. He knew Kyle Clifford. He had to know there was a response, man. I don't want to correlate it to Ridley Gregg, but he had to know if you pull that shit, especially against a team that you quit on with Kyle Clifford there was going to be a response. The response came, and I was like, oh my God, what do I do? Let's turtle like a bitch boy. So I don't know. I don't normally get pissed at shit like that, but I think it's so gutless when you pull shit like that and then you don't want to respond to it. But again, I think it's a microcosm for everyday life.
Well, the thing that would bother me the most if he's out there doing that stuff and the guys just look down at their skates and just allow him to shoot the bow and arrow or whatever the hell he's doing right at the bench and stare him all down after that. Like, you piece of shit. Like, the people on Twitter not understand, like, having a little bit of pride and dignity in yourself and standing up to, a guy just completely disrespecting the shit out of you. Some people just don't have that, and that's fine. But I'd be 10 times more upset if he did that right to the bench and there's just zero pushback. And then when you find out about the backstory on this guy and just, he's probably, most teammates on that team last year think this guy's a piece of garbage. Let's be honest. And
very likely, man. I was, did you catch Nikita Zadorov in After Hours over the weekend with Scott Oak?
No, I
thought it was really good because they went into, how he like mocked the gritty. Jake Wallman in Detroit does the gritty after he scores like big goals, and then Zadorov mocked him, and Wallman couldn't do anything because Nikita Zadorov, and he's like a 6'7" Newton or whatever he is. I I
Love
just
it.
love the breakdown. He's like, I don't play video games. Like, it was such a really good interview, a very candid interview with Zadorov. Like, I'd go check that out.
Really? I will. That
Yeah,
makes me like Zadorov even more. I was
yeah.
looking at, I don't know, talking to some Flames fans if we wanted him in there. There was some mixed reviews on him and whatnot, but the way he plays and hits, and now to hear that he's kind of a throwback old school, like
Oh
doesn't even
yeah.
know where the gritty comes from or whatever, and he's just like, get that bullshit out of my face.
Yeah,
Like
pretty
I just
much what
like
he
that old
said. He's
school.
like, I don't play video games. Like that was a direct shot at half the league to begin with. The guy's really in tap with culture and fashion. He was talking about Austin Matthews, how he respects his fashion takes and stuff like that. I thought it was a really riveting interview. And you talk like that about Zadorov. I just think he's a guy who takes no prisoners, man. He's out for war every game, out for blood every game. I love defensemen like that. And I think there's certain defensemen around the league. And I do think the Leafs will be connected to Zadorov, connected to Tanev. Don't forget about free agency coming up in the summer. So lots of moving parts at the Leafs Nation 401 on YouTube. You guys have been a big boost to the show and the community the last little while. If you're watching for the first time right now, please subscribe, hammer that like button. Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcasts as well. That'd be fantastic. Brought to you by DoorDash. It's time for the appetizer. For a limited time, our listeners can get 25% off at the $10 in value and zero delivery fees on their first order of $15 or more when you download the DoorDash app. Enter code NATION25. That's code NATION25, all in uppercase. 25% off your first order with DoorDash. Offer valid in Canada, subject to change. Terms apply. So I have to give it to the Maple Leafs. Wasn't their best effort. They got the job done. I know you weren't crazy about their start, eh?
It's ugly, man. A couple of like puck drops and just absolute snooze fest. I think like Bush, like his skate blade might have broke, but like
Yeah.
you just see some of the assignments missed and the panic and just the lack of holy smokes, they're coming fast. Like this is the NHL. They're not gonna ease you into the game where everyone gets a couple shifts to get their legs under you. Like teams are going to attack right off the bat. That should be your mentality. But like you see Bertuzzi just like, oh, there's the puck, just blasting straight at the puck, which Morgan Riley's kind of already assigned to, and just leaving the middle of the net completely the most dangerous part of the ice so wide open. It's just like, were you guys even like remotely ready to rock and roll here or not? But nonetheless, they bounced back from it and responded. But it's just tough to get your back against the wall. It's just so deflating to start a game that way. And they're fairly famous for starting like dog shit, like getting scored on or giving breakaways, odd man rushes in the opening face off of the game. So something obviously I would like to see them figure out a little bit in the future.
Yeah, it is. It is bizarre, the whole start on time mentality dating back to Mike Babcock. Just reading news and notes, from practice today. No Mitch Marner once again. Jake McCabe also absent. Nick Robertson again recalled on the ice for the Maple Leafs. Don't play until Thursday. But that was also a takeaway, and I thought it was pretty candid from Sheldon Keefe after on the top line, which I couldn't agree with more. They weren't very good. The rest of the group pick them up. Bertuzzi, Matthews, and Nylander. It was a very pedestrian game for that team or that line without Mitch Marner, of course.
Yeah, their record's not real great without Marner.
I know.
And Marner's been solid lately. I got to tip my cap to Marner. He's been playing. He's never going to go be that bulldog and absolutely, be a freight train out there just trucking guys in the corner and stuff like that. You don't expect that, but the dipsy doodle and it's been more Nylander's been a little bit careless with the puck, and Mitch has just been solid, making plays, moving his feet, getting to the spots, finding Austin. And none of these just eye rolling, momentum sucking and draining type of plays where it's just like, are you kidding me with this fancy bullshit from the outside, trying to be a highlight reel on Instagram, like low percentage bullshit where you're in no position to be back defensively responsible if it doesn't go the right way, which often low percentage plays don't, blah, blah, blah. He hasn't been doing that. So hats off to him. We've kind of carved him up in the past, and in my mind, rightfully so. And his game's been solid, and he's been a big part of this. And rightfully so. These guys are the big four. And I just keep, looking at Twitter and people's thoughts on the team right now. And these big boys, like that's all there is left to do. They have to come up and they got to do it in the playoffs. Like they have to be the best players on the team. If they don't outperform at least the other team's top players, you just don't have a chance in hell. Like, I don't understand what people don't get about, like, they need to be the Austin Matthews of the world in the playoffs. They need to have the most points. They have to get that big goal. They have to tie it up. They have to get that insurance goal. They have to score in overtime. They have to do the series clinchers. Like, everything's on them, and that's why they're here, and that's why they're signed, and that's why so much cap is committed to them. It's the end of the road. Like, it's do or die. And if they're not the best players on the ice, it'll be simple to break it down. They
Yeah.
lost. They weren't the best players on the ice.
Yeah, but it's fascinating too, because like I know the onus is on the players, but they conducted this same message last year post deadline. I understand there was way more pickups, but they didn't get the job done. They brought them back. So like I take that with a grain of salt, where it's like, yeah, it's on the players, but you're not going to do anything. I know you're not trading Mark, you're not trading anybody. It's going to be the same team, the same core that comes back next year. So I'm not putting as much stock into that whole messaging system. I just think they tried to go and get better and they couldn't. There wasn't really many names out there. There was nobody I would have traded a first round pick for. And I think cap wise, it didn't make sense to do that. But again, we'll have that conversation. I think you're bang on. It's got to be those guys. We said it every year. A lot of people in the chat asking our opinion on Simone Benoit sitting, right? So Joel Edmondson makes his debut over the weekend, plays 1903, paired with Liljegren. I thought Liljegren had a rough night. I thought TJ Brody had a rough night. I mean, nothing has really changed in the last couple weeks, and Brody's respect for the majority of the season. But what did you think of them electing to sit Benoit of all defensemen?
I don't like Benoit being out. Just the fact that he is this kind of unsung story of a guy that came in, understood what was needed, and did exactly that. I don't think you'll find a fan that pays attention to the games that's not high on him and appreciates him and the way he's played and the way he's filled in some cracks that were evident on the back end, and the physicality from it, and he gets in there. Just everything about him's really solid. Unfortunately, he just shoots the wrong way, and we tried to get the right-handed defenseman and got one, but we're just so loaded up with lefties to take one out and have a righty like Liljegren in the stands. It's like, I understand why they don't want to. I'm Benoit over Liljegren if you ask me, but I understand
Yeah.
why just loading up with lefties becomes a problem with their partners and their pairings. And I think Lily is being saved right now by being a right-handed shot, being in the lineup, and you don't have enough of those, and they're always sought after. And we talked about it at trade deadline, but it's strictly that in my mind. I don't think if they shot the same way, I don't think that they would have pulled Benoit out. I think it's strictly because Lily's a righty.
I think they overthink it, man. This was very evident during the Kyle Dubas era. It continues here. Maybe it's Sheldon Keefe. I think you overthink it. I just don't understand how. And I don't know how you take Benoit out and you keep Brody in there. Like, am I watching the same team where every night it's like grenade, grenade, grenade? Like TJ Brody, again, the first 2 years of the contract were exceptional. The last couple of years have been a train wreck. He's just not providing the value you need from where he's being pegged, in the lineup. And I think you look at, weirdly enough, like the consistency coming from Benoit on a game by game basis. Like Brody's the guy easily I'm taking out. Like, we often talk about accountability and holding players accountable. Like Brody's made a billion mistakes and he's never the guy pinpointed. It's really bizarre. And granted, it's one game. I think we will see plenty of changes. We're going to see some different configurations. Like, man, we're going to see 11-7 down the stretch. New lines over the weekend. Like, it's the same old story for this team with like 18 plus or whatever remaining in this campaign in the regular season. And we're going to see different things, but in my wildest dreams, I would never suspect that it's Benoit who takes the fall for like the additions. Like he's been the mainstay for me on the blue line this season.
I know, and it's I don't know if I'm not I'm not guessing that's going to be a constant. I think they wanted to try out some pairings and
Yeah.
whatever his thought was. I really think they put a lot of stock into that right-handed shot and having as many righties as they can in the lineup. But yeah, like Brody, I don't know. You look at he's coming up on 900 games in the show.
I know.
The guy's been playing defense for a long time, and sometimes I know what you're saying. It's like, really, man, like he's scrambling. He's not sure what to do. He's not sure. Sometimes he's just standing like on a play towards the net. He's just standing off to the side and there's nobody
Yeah.
there. And it's kind of like, what were you watching, dude? Like, you've got 900 in the show as a defenseman. Like, just your experience level alone should be like quite enough to get you in the positionally sound spots that you need to be to kind of have success as a defenseman. But yeah, he tends to scramble it up a little bit and dump his problems on, move it up the ice and dump his problems on other people, be out of position a little bit. And yeah, a lot of the breakdowns do, you rewind the tape and you look and you say, well, here it is right here with Brody just kind of being out to lunch. And it's a difficult position, man. I always hats off to NHL defensemen because, I played pro as a defenseman, and it's a difficult position to play. You're very exposed at your mistake levels. And I think Brody's kind of, yeah, I know what you mean. For what he makes and his experience level, I'd like a little bit more out of him. I'd like him to be, not flashy. We don't need him to be toe dragging guys up on the blue line, but can you just be like really solid and just kind of, play dots in and keep everything to the outside and just have your man and clear the puck and just nice and smooth and easy and reliable. And he tends to fight that a little bit, which yeah, if he could sort that out, and I just don't see it happening overnight. He is what he is, but it would be nice if he could just shore up a little bit more consistency. And yeah, like you said, the accountability thing again, like why not him? Why doesn't he get pulled out?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people in the chat making the observation too that Benoit's a Quebecer. It would have been easy to put him in the lineup. People drawing correlation to like when Babcock sat Spezza in Ottawa. I get that. I'm with you. Like they want to take a look at couple different things. Would you make a Joel Edmondson in his debut? So I mentioned 1903 paired with Liljegren. A couple things I noticed was his length, obviously 6'5", and his communication skills. Like just watching him, and I have before, obviously with Washington, Montreal, St. Louis. How much he talks out there. I think the Leafs could actually talk a lot more. I think you don't notice it. But I notice every shift, like he's pegging players different area. Like the guy's very experienced for a 30-year-old. He's been through it. He's won a cup. I like his size. I like his length. I like him on the PK. Like I think he checks a lot of boxes. Does a guy like Joel Edmondson?
Yeah, for sure. He looks big out there for sure. And a big towering body on the back end is always nice to have. And that's a good point on the communication. Like as a defenseman, like TJ Brody's not yelling anything out there.
I
He's
know.
not controlling the play. He's not, the captain of the ship back there, letting people know where it's going or where it's coming or where they got to be and keeping in contact. He's scrambling, not sure what to say because he's not sure if he's in the right spot. And when a defenseman is communicating a lot and like on the back end calling it out and saying where you are and here it comes up the wall and move and just little things like that, you can tell he has confidence and you can tell he's in control out there and knows what he wants to see. He's where he wants to be. It's such a really good sign when guys are really communicative out there and talking, and you can hear it on the broadcast as well. And that just breeds a lot of confidence into the guys that are out there. Like the forwards can kind of like read off of him, and it's a calming influence out there when a guy communicates that much, because he's in control and he's not panicking and he knows what he's doing out there, and it's it breeds confidence out there. So I like that too. It's a good point.
Connor Dewar, not as noticeable, plays 11-13, had that marquee interview before the game, like a man of very, very few words. You could tell it was probably maybe his first ever national interview in Hockey Night in Canada. He had the towel, didn't know quite well what to do with the towel, but he didn't stick out for better or for worse at that. Played with Holmberg and Reeves in the fourth line. Another guy who's going to be intertwined into that conversation with the Robertsons, the Gregors, like those type of guys in the bottom six, right? Let's see if he can pull this job from somebody.
Yeah, that's what it's going to be. Like, show me something. Show me why you should be in the lineup. Show me why we're going to put our faith on you in the playoffs. And, he's not a guy that's, you say you didn't notice him his first game. Yeah, it's not, did you expect him to be the front runner on the whole roster and stealing the spotlight and stuff? Not really. That's not really what he is. That would be playing way over his head. But yeah, you put him in there and Sheldon Keefe is just going to watch and say who fits the narrative and who's doing what we need and who's bringing more energy to the table, who's being more responsible defensively, where I can put you out there the last couple of minutes of a period, that kind of thing. Like, are you giving us what we want? And he's going to rotate those guys in and out, I think, until you find something that works. And it'll be interesting to see, who's chomping at the bit the day before playoffs and going to be in the lineup.
Definitely. The other big story for me, and I know it's too early to be talking about awards, but Masterton Trophy, Ilya Samsonov. Like I think we should designate a campaign on this show, this podcast, for Ilya Samsonov. Man, 29 save since his waiver stint, 12-3-0, 2.37, 9-11, one shutout. I thought he was brilliant again. And to me, this has to be the biggest story of this Maple Leaf season, the real rags to riches story, where the guy was placed on waivers. Every team in the league had a shot to claim Ilya Samsonov. They said no thanks. He comes back after words from words of inspiration from his father and everybody around him, and all of a sudden he's turned into like a premier goalie in this league, where every game he's being made, he's making saves, and now you could actually have that conversation down the stretch. Who starts game one of the playoffs? It's crazy to me.
It's a huge bounce back. Like, I don't know, doesn't
I
that
know.
Masterton usually go to someone who like what do you say? So he was dog shit in the first half, but he
It's like
turned his game
perseverance,
around.
a story of
Yeah,
perseverance. Like
I
I,
get
I think there's going to be a couple guys out there, but I think at the very least, like there should be consideration for a Samsonov. Like, I mean, mental health. I mean, there's your story.
yeah, and I mean, I don't know what the details are on what was going on with him or what his reset was, or like you say, spoke to his father and stuff. Yeah, that's pretty standard, but it was a huge 180. It was,
Yeah.
from how much he was struggling, and I remember sitting right here going, when he got back in the lineup and got called back up, and he didn't even play a game with the Marlies. It's not like he had a whole bunch of numbers and got his game back in place. It was just like he went away on like almost like a rehabilitation of his mind, I guess. And he came back, and it was his first game back. And I remember thinking, this is such a big game. Like, this has got to be such a pressure pack game. Like, he knows, we know, everyone knows, if you don't have it now, you're probably on the shelf. You're probably done. Um, you probably won't wear the Maple Leaf sweater again. And he had a solid performance, and then another one after that. And he's been like about nothing but solid for the entire time. His record speaks for itself. Save percentage, goals against, all that stuff. Like, nobody's perfect, but he has been so solid. And to turn it around like that, I don't know what the hell he did. I don't know what changed, or like, did he go off on an ayahuasca trip and just reinvigorate his soul? I don't know, but he's playing a lot better hockey, and it's good to see, because I like Sammy, and I think you could put a lot of faith in him. And when he's good, he's really good. And honestly, the goaltending isn't really a huge factor in my mind this year. I think both are very capable, and if they're playing well, they're going to be in good hands.
Yeah, it's really crazy. I just think you look at the numbers specifically for Samsonov. Like, it's wild to me that we're having that conversation where like they got to cut bait with this guy. They got to let him go. Just let him go to the minors. To now, it's like you need him to start every game. He's been brilliant and he's being outstanding, just doing his thing. And he's an afterthought, which I think you want from your goaltenders, where every game he's been consistent. Like, consistency is the big word for me. Every game, you can count on Ilya Samsonov. It's great to see.
Yeah, like the first 15 there, producer Vic's getting some stats up at like just about 4 goals against. Your average is
Yeah.
just not NHL caliber. You just can't be in the pipes if you're going to be like that. And now it's 9-1-1, 12-3 since he came back. I mean, that's not like that's a solid number, man. That's a solid 180 resurgence, whatever you want to call it. But good for him, because I don't think we have goalie woes right now. I still want to see Wool. Um, like, I don't think he's really been given a fair shake coming back, an opportunity for him to get comfortable and find himself between the pipes. And I'm looking forward to him getting some solid starts and some big wins and some big performances, because he's capable of it. I think that, throughout this stretch that we're talking about being kind of the dog days, I wouldn't be surprised if Wool popped off and said, I am the guy that everyone's thinking about come game one of the Stanley Cup playoffs, because he's very capable, man. I think this kid's a stud, and it's just up to him to show it now.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun debate down the stretch, no less. At the Leafs Nation 401, if you're watching right now, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast as well. You talk about the model of consistency. John Tavares, his 14th 20-goal season, scores the game-winning goal in that game. I thought in general, the third line with Camp and McMahon looked really, really good. Bobby McMahon, by the way, ended an 8-game goalless drought. Now is 8-14, but John Tavares doing his thing. I thought it was crazy to suggest that was the first regulation victory versus an Eastern Conference opponent since December 23rd, man. Like, it's a long ass time.
I saw that. That was shocking to see that. And I don't know. I always battle with my buddies in group chat out here about the East versus the Western Conference on what's tougher, and they pull up some bullshit stats, and I show some stuff too. But you know, I wish it was the other way around. We sure seem to smack the West around this year.
I
They
know.
go out on the road and just kind of clean up. And I get that you have you have the San Jose's and the Anaheims and the Arizonas and that type of thing in the West, and you should be able to clean up some points on those teams. But it's not a great look, man, to be in the Eastern Conference and to not have a very. It's not like their record's horrendous, but just like you're not obviously cleaning up, you're not finishing games, you're getting some points and chipping away here and there in overtime and shootouts and stuff, but you're obviously not as dominant against the Eastern Conference team is not ideal when you're when you're playing the first your first rounds against the Eastern Conference. I always thought the East is heavy. I think this division is heavy. The Big Bad Bruins are always what they are. We struggle against them like crazy. Florida has kind of been under the radar this year, almost, dare I say, and I just know they're waiting for the playoff puck to drop in the first playoff game so they can go do their thing. I think they're built for it. So yeah, I mean, once again, Leafs just gotta tie up their boots and go to work and be who they are. And everyone's got to elevate their game and do what they do really well. You can't have any ghosts. You can't have any no-shows. I mean, if there's any of that especially with the big boys, it's over. I mean, there's no team that's built where it's like, no, our number 1 and 2 guy can just not really show up and we're going to somehow win a series. It doesn't work that way. So every time that people are breaking down the team and analyzing this and do they have enough, to me it's just like it's there's no point. If the boys show up, they can do anything. If they don't, they're toast. So the consistency is what's huge for me. And a guy like Austin Matthews has got to be doing what he's been doing the last month. He can't do what he did the other night and just not be a factor in any of the game, which, let's be honest, that's been an issue in the past.
Yeah, it's a lagging season too. It's a long season. I give these guys the benefit of the doubt. The flu's been going through the room. I agree with you. I mean, it is Montreal on a Saturday night, but again, as you know better than most people, you're gonna have your on nights, you're gonna have your off nights. But yeah, everything's got to come together at the right time. Name Canada's best mattress on Canadian Living. Douglas is loved by more than 200,000 Canadians, and they're backed by over 10,000 five-star reviews. Every mattress order comes with a free comfort sleep bundle, 2 memory foam pillows with pillow protectors, 1 luxurious cotton sheet set, and 1 mattress protector. Order today at douglas.ca/LMT. That's douglas.ca/LMT. So I know we had our deadline recap show on Friday. Make sure to go check that out. But Brad Treliving spoke as we did that show. Just want to go over some of the comments consistent with what we've been talking about the first 30 minutes of today's show. But this is what Treliving had to say. We try to make some moves to address certain areas, but at the end of the day, a lot of the answers are going to come from the guys are in the room. That's the reality of the situation. We've got a group that's driven. We got a group that's hungry. Also said this on Overdrive. Let's be clear on the messaging. I feel we have enough in here to get where we need to get to, but it's up to the group that's in here. Any problems with the messaging, Rosie?
No, none. Absolutely none. He looked out there. He was working the phones. There was probably offers. He probably had some offers sent out there. Probably got some laid on his desk. And at the end of the day, I can't think of something that he should have gone and made happen. Because it's not always the answer. I mean, we loaded up last year and in the playoffs, and with the Ryan O'Reillys and Luke Shens and that type of thing, like you couldn't really have asked for anything more. You're like, here's guys with pedigree, with experience, who play a complementary way to other players on the team, like more playoff style, blah blah blah. It just didn't really work out. Got past the first round, great, but it's not always going to come from the outside. And there's, the Leafs Nation just wants this like huge signing, and we get like the best defenseman in the world. And this now we're total. It's not really how it works. And you already have the big boys on your team. Like you have the Marners and the Matthewses, and you just sign the Nylanders, and the leadership of John Tavares and clutch. Consistency is supposed to be what carries. And at the end of the day, I'm totally on board with what Treliving said. Here's our team, and we've seen them play really bloody well, and they're capable of beating any team, but it can't be inconsistent. It can't be late starts. It can't be half-assed efforts. It can't be nonchalant, non-physicality, whole plays and perimeter stuff. Like, it's got to be hard. It's got to be all in. Like, when you go into a playoff run with a team, it's crazy how much everything changes. The mentality of the coach, the meetings, the practices, everything is just now focused on what do you need to play your best and to be on your game at the drop of that puck on the next game. And like the yelling and the screaming and the bag skates and the hard practices and it's just like, what do you guys need? All the work is done, all the prep is done, we are who we are. What do we need to do to play this next game, to be at 100%? Like, the whole mentality changes and everyone just goes all in, ready to go to war. It's guys are banged up and guys are hurt and they're playing through it, and you come together, and it's a very cool part of the season that everyone looks forward to. And this team just needs to adopt that. Like, we're just going to bury our heads, go fucking bananas, and just give absolutely everything we have. And whatever you're good at, whatever the reason is you're on this roster, go do that to the best of your ability. And if everyone's on the same page, man, this team can be deadly. It's just, you got to do it.
I've had this conversation so many times in this market. And I think you look at this deadline specifically, like if, talking to people and reading social media at 3:01 Eastern time, people were pissed off. All of a sudden, everybody's like, it's all about the core four. I just love this market. It's like nobody knows exactly how they feel, right? People were complaining about trades they didn't make. There wasn't really any players out there. Like I'm happy they kept their first round pick. And this is somebody who thinks they have a legit shot to win a Stanley Cup. Like, I mean, you look around the league, who traded a first, a legit first? I guess it was Winnipeg to get Sean Monahan. Like, even I think there was conditions on that deal. I just don't think there were players that are significantly going to better your roster out there. And I think to that point, you look the last couple of years, I think it's working around the edges that makes the most sense. And it's also important to bring up, as you did, that they tried the all-in approach. And maybe this is the year that it happens. I think the more times you go at it, every year they know it's all about the core four. So I had no problem with the messaging either. I just thought it was fascinating that on Friday people were like, oh, this team sucks. Like, why didn't they do anything? Now all of a sudden, a couple of days later, it's like, oh, it's all about the big guys. Like, if they do it, they're gonna win. It's like, which is it,
Yeah, I know what you mean. And I think that the Leafs fans are sometimes out of answers, right? They want it now. They're hungry. They've been
Yeah,
hurt before. There's just no there's just no doubt about it. Everyone wants it and is not exactly sure. And there's gonna be, when there's that many people with their hands in the mix, there's gonna be a lot of different opinions. And at the end of the
sure.
day, it's just, that's why it's simple. They just gotta go out and get it done. And they're a pretty good hockey team. They're not perfect. They're not the most dominant in the world. They've got their flaws, but so do a lot of teams. And it wouldn't be out of the realm. Maybe to be counted out is a good thing. I don't know what's better for this group, if they're highly touted favorites or if they're, you know, underdogs that no one expects much from. I don't know. And at the end of the day, it comes down to Sheldon Keefe. He's the captain of the helm. He's going to be putting out the best messaging, putting out the best roster, putting out the best lines, and you just hope they can find some consistency and be really comfortable with how things are rolling, right up to the playoffs, and then ride that right into the postseason.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing what transpires in the last 6 weeks of the season. And it's just going to feel like Groundhog every day till we get to the playoffs, right? I think we're just at a point now, the deadline's passed. We know this team's going to be in the postseason. I want to see if they've learned from their mistakes. And again, this conversation's had every year, but like when they get to the playoffs, are we going to see a different Austin Matthews? Are we going to see a different Mitch Marner? Are they going to score those lunch pail type goals that we saw in the Tampa series? Like, there's just so many questions. And we talk about this every year. I think the first show of the year, I'm like, Rosie, and you hate this, regular season doesn't matter. The whole conversation, it stems towards one convo, and that's one monster convo. What are they going to do come the playoffs? Well, we're about to find out our answer in about 6 weeks here. I love it.
Yeah, I know. And now's the time where I'm kind of more on board with that. Like, not that it doesn't matter, but I just want
The
it.
process.
I want to get it going. Yeah, it is. And this is the point in time where you need to like shore up all those details and clean up the rough around the edges and find, like, I really want them to find the lines that you're rolling with. And like, this is our team. Like when you go, to war and your army shows up on the line, you're not like, oh, you over here, let's try you over here, let's see what happens when you play with this thing, and let's put you in this role over here, maybe we'll try that right before. And everyone's like, holy fuck, are we ready to go, or like what's going
Yeah.
on? Like, shouldn't we know who we are and what works best by now? I really don't want to see what happened last year with the line juggling. Good lord, the 11-6 and or 11-7, and I just don't like any of that stuff. I want to know who we are. We've had enough time. This is the lineup that works the best. These are the lines that gel, that we have the most success with, and it's a done deal. We know that. We've had time to figure it out. Here we are. Let's roll with confidence and knowing exactly. Like, I just feel like the whole mixing up the lines, it kind of looks desperate. It kind of looks hopeful. It kind of
Mhm.
looks like you're out of options and you're just hoping something happens. I don't think it's a great look, and I don't think it breeds confidence throughout the roster. So I'm hoping they're going to use that time to actually shore up their lineup and say, this is who we are, this is the best, and this is what we got that we know and we're happy and comfortable with. Let's go.
It's crazy to me. Like, he has tried every combination possible. Like, I cannot remember, and I watch a lot of hockey, a coach that makes this many changes to his roster. Like, every game, it's a different lineup. Like, there's no point in breaking down the lines anymore. I remember in training camp, we had that convo, like Nylander at center. I'm like, Rosie, this is going to last like 3 days. And it did. Like,
Mhm.
this guy's such a wild card, man. He switches lines so often. I could only wonder how that feels as a player. It's like you see two new line mates like twice a week, you know?
I know, and we've talked about that. Like, to mix it up so much, I like that lots of guys can play in different scenarios and play with different players, but there's a line in my mind where it's like, now you're just kind of throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. And like, are you ever going to let it stick? Is what if it does? Like, sometimes it works and guys have a great game and this line is good and he just breaks them up for that. Like what was the conversation
I
to,
know.
let's pull this guy off the wing and try this? Like, you already did that last game and it worked really well. So then what is the point? What are you looking for? What's the end game is my thing. And it just didn't seem like, I don't even know if that's what he's doing. Is he trying to find something that works?
I
Because,
don't
like I
know.
just said, when it does work, sometimes he'll break that up. So I don't like it. I don't think players like it. In my experience, players are rolling their eyes going, who are you playing with tonight? And oh, I got this guy. And fuck, what? The guys are taping their sticks together going, what the fuck, man? Like, I thought we had a good thing going. Like, didn't you think we played well? Like, yeah, I loved it, man. Like, we were totally hooking up out there. Well, now we're broken up. Like, it pisses the guys off. They want to get some consistency, some familiarity. They want to be able to have their line mates, know their patterns and understand what their tendencies are out there in order to make plays and finish plays off and cover each other and understand what their motives are out there and how you can feed off each other, like whether it's defensive pairings or line matching and stuff. I just don't get breaking it up all the time. These guys must just be spinning, and maybe that's where the individual efforts come from sometimes when they're not playing well, which they haven't done lately, albeit. But when they're spinning around and all a bunch of individuals out there, maybe it's because they feel like they just got to take care of themselves because they can't rely on having any familiarity on their wing, or if they're defensive partners, they're just out there on their own. I think that having solid lines really builds that chemistry where you can get to the point where you're really playing as a unit of 5 every shift. And it's kind of annoying. So I'm hoping he doesn't do that as much this next 18, 17 games, whatever it is.
Raymond writes in, Keith's ringtone is a blender. I couldn't agree more with you. And I would be curious to know how many different line combinations they've used in the regular season. Maybe Chat GPT has that answer, or Google or somewhere, but that's got to be in the hundreds at this point.
It's everything and anything, I'm sure. And I don't know, if you were honest with those players and asked them, I'm sure the majority of them wouldn't like it and would like some consistency. I know that guys don't mind getting pulled up to play with the big boys. Obviously, you get opportunities and cracks at playing, but that's all fine and dandy for a point in time. But like I said, there's a line to me where I think it does more harm than good after you cross a certain line. And I think that he's tiptoed into that area more than a few times. And all I can say is hopefully they find some combinations that work, that they stick with, that they can gel on, and that, like I said, get some momentum built up here and some confidence going into the playoffs so that you're ready to rock. And when that puck drops game 1, you fucking put the hammer down. You don't get taken by surprise. You don't take time to figure out what's working again and who am I playing with. No, you know who you are and you're ready to rock.
Again, no Jake McCabe at practice. They're rolling with Brody, Benoit, and then Riley, Labushkin, and Edmondson and Lilligren. But again, all that can change ahead of Thursday night's game in Philadelphia against the Flyers. Every All-Star needs a sidekick to support them, just like every Wendy's meal needs a 6-piece of nuggets. And right now, Wendy's is teaming up with Daily Faceoff Fantasy to bring you weekly prizes like free nuggets, burgers, and more. So if you think you're an expert in all things hockey, prove it. And if you aren't already, start adding a 6-piece to your Wendy's order for just $3.49. It's the dynamic duo even you never saw coming. Sign up for Daily Faceoff today, sponsored by Wendy's and the Wendy's app. So a 2-game slate, we talked about it. Finally, some R&R for the Maple Leafs at Philly on Thursday, home to Carolina on Saturday. What would you do with Samsonov and Wall? Do you go back to Sammy on Thursday in Philly? Do you go back to Wall after a week off?
I'm not sure. I haven't thought about it. I would like to see Wall in there again. You know,
Yeah.
Sammy's done his thing. I don't, like I said, I don't think Wall got that fair shake. I don't like last week. I don't like playing Wall in back-to-back Bostons. I didn't understand it. Didn't make sense to me, and it didn't work out worth a shit. So I would like Wall to get in a position where he can flourish and get some confidence going. And, you know, I still don't think he's played enough to get, you know, feeling really comfortable back in his like middle of the season vibes with his, you know, timing and his angles and all the things that goaltenders need to feel really good. But I do like watching Wall play, man. Like his calmness in there. Like sometimes goalies, like sometimes it's not like that's the only way to play. Sometimes goalies are sliding around and flopping around and making acrobatic saves, and they make that big save, and it's pretty, you know, it's pretty wild to watch, and it gets the big applause and stuff. But like Wolsey, when like really uptight, you know, tension rising moments come where you think he'd kind of be like, fuck, are they? He's just like, bruh. He's just like, this like a transformer in there, just, I'm fine, and just blocks that. And he doesn't panic. He's not flapping around. And even when I watch, it just calms me down and like brews confidence. And I know that that's palpable on the bench. And if he's on his game, man, I just think like his good is so good. And he's still so young and inexperienced that, you know, the sky's the limit for this guy. He can be as good as he wants to be. And the way he approaches the game with calmness and poise is like everything you want in a goaltender. So I'd like to see him play a little bit more and get his legs under him and get some good wins under his belt and some good performances where, I mean, the best problem you can have is not knowing who to put in because they're both playing solid, you know?
Yeah, there's just something very chill about Wool. Like, I think you're always careful to compare anybody to Carey Price, but it just his demeanor out there and how nothing seems to phase him. I love that aspect of Joseph Woll. So I'm with you. I think I would go Wool Thursday. The only problem they run into is something you've been complaining about on this show ad nauseum for the last week is having Samsonov play 2 games against Boston, while 2 of the next 3 against Philadelphia. So you go Wool on Thursday, means Sammy on Saturday, which means Wall again on Tuesday against Philadelphia. Maybe you mix things up because it's a back-to-back. They got Philly and Washington next Tuesday, Wednesday. So then you get your dream scenario.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm sure they'll both get their kicks, and
Yeah.
I just don't think that's comparable to 2
Yeah,
games
I
in a
know.
week against Boston. I think that was a screw up to the kid that hasn't got his legs under him. He got 1 game against Arizona, and
It
then
was so
back to back.
simple too. Just go like Buffalo, like play Sammy against or like Wool against Buffalo, and then Sammy on the Thursday, right?
I
Like,
know. I
yeah,
was absolutely shocked that they did that, and I get that you're like say he got the wins there, but it's just such a gamble, and
I know.
it's not really fair to put him in those low odds situation where like fuck man yeah, Sammy was playing Sammy, you had every reason to play Sammy too. He's been playing more, he's
Mhm.
been hot, he's you know, not coming back from injury, he's in the rhythm of things, like play him. And just such a tough spot to put the kid in. I get that if it worked out he'd be absolutely flying high, but it's just not the risk I think it was worth. You should have not the risk I think you should have taken at that point in the season, at that point of his comeback at all. And it obviously didn't work. And, you know, not that he's lost confidence necessarily, but I would really like for him to get a couple good ones in.
The Betano wrap-up is presented by Betano.ca. The game starts now, 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Major announcement, Betano is the official partner of Copa America 2024, taking the beautiful game to new heights in the Americas. Join Betano on their journey of passion, unity, and unforgettable football moments. A 4-game slate in the NHL on this Monday. The one thing I did like, looking at it, was the Winnipeg Jets after being smothered over the weekend against the Vancouver Canucks. They're back on home ice. They're facing the Washington Capitals. Tyler Toffoli, I think, is projecting to make his debut in that game for the Jets. So give me Winnipeg. I think if you want to extract some juice, give me the Jets in regulation against the Washington Capitals. Anything else you're looking at? The Devils are playing the Rangers, always a good one. St. Louis, Boston. Pavel Zacha's been on fire. And the New York Islanders, man, we talk about coaching changes throughout this season. They've been red hot, suddenly in a playoff spot. And Detroit, man, they've plummeted like crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy. The Islanders are like plus 125 too. That might want to be something you look at against the LA King. Interesting. Yeah, there's a couple things on the board. I like those Jets. I mean, I think they're kind of I don't know how undercover they are in the West, but kind of that isolated market over there in Winnipeg, where I know the fans of them are really high on them right now and thinking they're a wagon this year, and they're right up there for, odds wise to win a cup this year. So they're solid for sure. They're minus 210, but yeah, you want to sprinkle in a little bit of a parlay or something with Toffoli getting on the board or something like that would be something that could work out. But yeah, 4 kind of somewhat interesting games this evening.
Yeah, and Rosie, I appreciate you. You really carried the show today. I don't know about you. Springing forward, dude, is just tough for me. I lose that hour, and it's like, man, I'm in robot mode. So I appreciate you today, man.
No, I hear it. It's one of those soggy Mondays, man. But like we said at the beginning of the show, kind of the dog days of the season here. I think we're going to work some interviews and stuff into the show and get some guys' takes while we're kind of at a bit of a snooze point in the season. But I'm sure there'll be no shortage of talking points and whatnot with this team once they get playing again here after a little bit of a rest.
Yeah, so we got one of your former teammates coming up tomorrow. Mikhail Grabowski's going to drop by the show.
He's like put himself out on social media in like a funny, unique way, and it's interesting what his game plan is, what he's looking to for the future, and if he wants to get back in the mix of hockey in some way, shape, or form. It'll be fun to pick his brain, and we'll see how much he's kept up on his English and see how his accent's doing. But he's an undercover funny guy, really good guy. He just didn't talk a whole lot because of the language barrier, but I think if you're following him on socials right now, you can see that he's got some personality to him.
Yeah, so Grabo's hopping aboard tomorrow. We're working on a couple different things. We won't tell you on air what we're working on, but we're trying our best to get a couple things accomplished here on the show. So again, that's Jay Rosehill. Thank you to producer Vic. Thank you to everybody in the chat at the Leafs Nation 401. Pound that subscribe button, hammer that like button, turn those notifications on. Leafs Morning Take wherever you find your podcast as well. And we'll talk on Tuesday. That's Jay Rosehill. I'm Nick Alberga. Take care. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews. We got clips. We got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.